When you don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello and welcome back to the What the Fox podcast with your hosts, Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross. We have our Pride Month theme going strong this week, and we are talking a little bit about defeating the odds and being true to yourself. And with that, super excited that Mike Manning is here with us. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Like we need a drum roll.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, drum roll. Can you hear it? I don't know if it's coming through, but yeah.
It's not coming. It's fine.
It's all right. It's all good.
Fine. Starting strong with the disappointing sound effect. I can't even do that.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm gonna hype you up here for a second. For those of y'all who might not know the name Mike Manning, let me tell you who he is. So Mike Manning is an Emmy-winning actor and producer, most known for his role in Disney's popular snowboarding movie Cloud 9 on MTV's Teen Wolf, and the Manny on NBC's popular drama series This Is Us, and playing the bad boy Charlie Dale on NBC's Days of Our Lives. Mike has also produced over a dozen cause-based scripted and documentary feature films, and is the president of Lucky Mann Productions. So that's just a small blip on the radar, actually, in terms of who Mike really is. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper today.
Let's dig.
Yeah, we're going to dig. Because there's so much more to you than all of this. Although I will say, I feel like maybe the age of our listeners probably are most familiar with your initial appearance on the MTV's Real World from back in like 2010. So just saying, we're going to have to go back in the day a little bit, and we'll probably touch on that a little.
Let's do it. Yeah.
But first,
well, you know what I'm going to say, because it's been a common theme, Mike. You may not know this, but it's a common theme here that Lindsey knows some of the most epic and amazing humans on the planet. And there's oftentimes a very unusual way that she met said humans. So I'm going to start today because I want to know how you two met. I'm super curious.
All right. Well, Lindsey, you go first, and I will confirm or deny it.
Mike's like, shit. I am not incriminating myself. I will say no words.
Okay. I feel like we should play like 3 truths and a lie.
Yeah, 3 truths and a lie. It was in prison. Crap.
It was in a foreign country.
Foreign country.
This thing happened. Yeah, so actually Mike and
I'll take foreign country for 200, please.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bump it. I actually don't remember the exact day that we met, but we used to work together at a international travel company, and we were hustling for some free trips.
And did you go, was it the Costa Rica trip or the Boston trip?
I did both. So
I think either one of those, because you were like a badass sales rep and I was a badass sales rep. Yeah. And so I think they invited all of us to Boston, to like the headquarters, but then also this free trip to Costa Rica. Right. And at that point I was in college. I think you were in college as well. And I don't know about you, but my parents I always wanted to travel, but my parents didn't want to pay for it. So yes, exactly. I ended up marketing for this travel company. And the more trips you would sort of sell, the more free trips you would go on. And I think I was in Colorado at this point. So I feel like I became like one of the #1 sales reps, because I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like I sell a bunch of trips and I get to go to Amsterdam with my friends. Like, of course. So,
I'm in. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it was such a sweet gig in terms of getting through college and then landing like these free trips overseas was awesome. And actually, P.S. Mike, I ended up moving to Boston to work at the headquarter office. I don't know if there's so much to catch up on, but
wow, I didn't know that. I had no idea.
Yeah, I ended up moving there, and that kind of like took a whole nother life of its own. But it's kind of wild. Like that's sort of what your story's all about too. Is like when we look at the ripple effect of like where these small little things, when life gives us these moments, and we can choose this path or this path, and then see where we wind up. I mean. Your journey in of itself is sort of like how the whole Real World thing popped up. I mean, I know your story about how you ended up on there, but do you want to give kind of like a little tidbit on how you even ended up in the Real World, especially as someone who didn't even know about the show, the show's existence?
Yeah, no, it's actually, it's a really crazy story, and I think that this is one example of, I mean, I don't know how much you believe in sort of like fate or
100%.
and I think that this was an act of like the universe just picking me up, picking little Mike up, and just putting him back on like the train tracks that he was meant to be on. Because I mean, I'll rewind to like high school. In high school, I did theater, and I loved acting, but I grew up in Colorado, and there was never there were no professional actors in my orbit. So I knew that I loved acting. I knew I loved performing, being in front of people, whatever, but I just didn't really think that I could make a living doing that. And so fast forward, I go to college for business, and my best friend, John Russell, it's my junior year of college, and I'm studying for like a finance test or something completely unrelated. We're in like the library, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Mike, there's an open casting call for this reality show called Real World. Do you want to come with me? I know that you used to audition, like help me get on the show." And I was like, "Okay, fine, but like you're going to buy me lunch." So we go to
yes.
So we go to Boulder, Colorado.
That sounds about right.
Like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm helping. We go to this open casting call, and I didn't know at this point, but there's like 30,000 people that apply at that point, at least, that apply to be.
He didn't tell you what you were getting yourself into. Like, you had no idea.
No idea at all. And like, so I show up there, they put a little number on my shirt, and it's actually funny. So the first round, there's like 6 rounds of casting that go into being on Real World. The first round is the casting director will take you into the room, 15 people at a time. So it's me and my buddy, and then like these other random people. And this like frat guy that I had hooked up with on the down low, he's also in that group. So it was like all these weird things. And so I'm sitting in here with this casting director and these like 15 people, and there's this blonde girl, and the casting director goes to her, and he was like, "Hey, like, who of these guys would you hook up with this in this room?" Because like the casting director is trying to weed people out and just, oh, who's drama, who's outgoing, whatever. So this is like round 1. So
oh my gosh.
So he asks her this, and she goes around the room and she's like, him, and him. And he points to my buddy and he goes, "What about him?" And she goes, "Ew, no." And so immediately I'm like, target locked. Like, this bitch is going down. So the casting director, epic. The casting director continues, and he's like, "How would you seduce him?" And she goes into this whole diatribe of like, "Oh, I would wear lingerie, and he would come home, and there would be candles everywhere, and there's rose petals going up the stairs, and I'd be laying in bed naked, and then I would have whipped cream on my nipples, and blah blah blah." She's like going into this whole thing, and I'm like just sitting here listening, and it's so stupid, and I'm just like, bullshit. And the casting director's like, "What?" And keep in mind now, she has a target on her back because of what she did to my friend. So he was like, "Do you have something to say?" And I was like, and I just went off. I was like, "Yeah, I have something to say." I was like, number 1, she's dyed her hair so many times that the chemicals, like, she's going to forget saying this in 5 minutes. Number 2, she's way too self-centered to like put this much thought into somebody else. Number 3, I wouldn't trust this woman with fire. Number 4, anybody knows that if you use whipped cream for sex, it's like, the idea is fun, but like it's sticky and it's gross and whatever, messy. And I just go into this girl. And so at the end of the whatever 15, 20 minutes, the casting director, he goes, like, they basically read off what people are going to stay, and he goes, number 576 and number 777 and whatever. It was like us 2. So he kept me, and he kept this girl.
Of course.
And that was it. And then I was like, I went home that night and I was like, oh shit, like maybe I should watch Real World. Like maybe I should Google, like, why did they ask me to come back, and maybe I should Google like what I'm getting into. And like, I just so happened to, I'm like, what the fox did I just sign up for? So I Googled some things, and then the next day, I think round 2 was like, you have to go and you talk one-on-one with this casting director with a camera there. And I met him at some, like, it was like the lobby of a hotel. It was random. So I go in there the next day, and this casting director started asking me questions that like nobody else had asked me before, because I just so happened to be going through a time in my life where I was dealing with some personal things, and it was like things that I couldn't tell my family about, couldn't tell my friends, couldn't tell anybody. And this random stranger who I didn't think I was going to get on the show. I never thought that I would see this person again. So I'm opening up and being honest with this complete stranger, thinking like, okay, cool. Like if anything, this will be a 30-minute counseling session for me. We ended
Casting
up and
101.
Yeah. And I basically, I keep in mind, like, I'm like, at this point, I'm 20 pounds heavier than I am now. I have a backwards hat on, an Abercrombie shirt. I'm like tanned. I'm like a Colorado bro.
I remember that version of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like basically the person that you met. So I go in there, and this casting director starts asking me very personal questions, and I'm just blurting out answers, because at that point I was so desperate just to tell somebody something. So at the end of the interview, it was supposed to go on for like 20-30 minutes. It was like an hour later, and he looks up from his clipboard and he goes, so let me get this straight. You are a Christian athlete who's sexually confused, and you go to church, and you just broke up with your girlfriend because you're secretly dating a frat guy, and you have like only told your mom about this. And I was like, yeah, basically, pretty much.
You're like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Nailed it.
And he's like, we'll be in touch.
And he, in his mind, he's like, holy ratings, Batman. He's for sure coming on the show.
Yeah, basically.
And then the rest became history, kind of. That is amazing. I so love that you just dove into all those details.
Well, so like, I have one question that we can't skip past. Was your friend pissed that you got on the show and he didn't?
So he was my best friend at the time. He was thrilled that I got on the show. And then he ended up visiting me while I was on the show, and like making out with one of the girls in the house or something. So he was fine. He was happy. I technically, like, at the when he came to visit me, he goes, I was like, technically I did my job. And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, technically I got you on the show. I was like, you didn't say for how long. I technically got you on the show.
Yeah, you understood the assignment. You fucking
got
it.
I did.
The devil's in the details, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, but honestly though, I feel like it's the real world where, to your point, however you want to phrase it, within your faith or your spirituality, I do feel like, in terms of your story and kind of seeing the path that you've carved out in your life, all of this was like divine timing. I mean, the fact that you were placed, not the real world's like Cancun, but the real world DC. You not only came out on national television, but then you were in this position where you started to figure out like, oh wait, I'm actually a really great activist, and let me pursue like you did lobbying and human rights advocacy. Like, you got really into stuff that I feel like the version of you that I met then, while sure you might have cared about these things, I feel like it just kind of like launched you into a whole new world at that point on the show.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct, because in 3.5 months, I went from being someone that cared about these certain issues, but not really understanding government, understanding lobbying, understanding, how those things, the inner workings of our congressional system, to, over the 3.5 months, lobbying members of Congress and senators and about repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and the Matthew Shepard anti-hate crimes bill, and so many other things that I deep down cared about, but I just didn't know sort of where to put that passion. And by the end of it, and I think that was, like you said, it was a godsend, because my experience on Real World Cancun would have been very, very different than Real World DC. And I'll take it one step further. Here's sort of a thing that many people don't know is I had gone to DC with the intention of working at an environmental, like a going green environmental organization, because at the time I was most passionate about the environment, and I also wasn't sure if I was gonna come out on the show. I sort of thought about it. I was like, you know what, I might spend these 3.5 months just dating women because that's sort of what I've done so far in my life. That's what I'm most comfortable with. I don't know if I'm ready to take that leap. And I'm walking down Connecticut Street, whatever it is, Connecticut, in DC, and I look over and there's a shirt in the window of a store that says "Amen" on it, AMEN, Amen. And I was like, wow, like something drew me to that shirt, to that store. And I walk over and it was the Human Rights Campaign store. So it was a shirt that said "Amen" on it that drew me to become a lobbyist for an LGBTQ equal rights organization.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Wow. I have goosebumps. Like I'm covered in goosebumps. That is, wow. I mean, so if that is not your sign to say, hey, babe, you've been gifted this amazing platform, lean into the discomfort. And I feel like time and time again, your whole story is centered around choosing faith over fear. Because had you stayed in that space of fear, I know that beforehand, you kind of, before we even like recorded, you had shared, there was a piece in terms of what inspired your journey is, your parents had kind of had this talk with you beforehand about like, do you want to come out? Do you want to come out on national television? And you were kind of having the back and forth around it. But some part of you said, I got to lean into the faith and not allow this fear to grip me any longer. So what was the shift for you in your thought process at that time?
Yeah, honestly, my faith was such an important tool that I used to help me get through a period of time in my life where I was feeling things that so many around me had told me, and I had grown up thinking that those things were wrong, including members of my church and my faith community. But it was interesting because I just, in my gut, I just felt like, okay, if everybody else is against me, like God made me the way he made me, and at least I have God, and my faith is the one thing that I'm not going to let all of these negative ideas take from me. And that's sort of what I clung to. And so it's kind of interesting that, and it's another reason why I'm so angry sometimes when I see faith used as a weapon and a tool for discrimination, because to me, I've seen faith do amazing things in myself, in members of my family, people I care about. Like I've seen faith transform their lives for the better. And so when I see faith being used as a weapon, I'm like, well, fuck that. Like, that's not my faith. Like, why are you taking that? You are hijacking what could be so beautiful and powerful and amazing for so many people. And you are hijacking that and you are using it as a weapon. How dare you? Kind of thing. And
you're doing it wrong. You're doing it
exactly
wrong.
you're taking this. It's exactly the opposite of what it is meant to do. So for me, I sort of clung to my faith at that point personally, and it was for very selfish reasons. I was like, look, I need my faith to feel good about myself because I have all these other internal things going on.
I have a whole narrative saying the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think in terms of being honest with myself and with others on the show, I didn't know at the time how powerful that would be. And I didn't really know the gravity of what I was doing. I just remember the first week in the house, I presented myself as straight to everybody, and I'm just laying there, and it's like my first week, and I'm laying in the bed. And in the real world house, you have no privacy. There's no television, there's no radio, you don't have your cell phone, there are cameras everywhere. You're wearing a necklace with a microphone, or you're wearing a microphone. There are microphones in the headboard, like zero privacy. And I remember laying in bed, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I cannot survive another 3 months of lies, of doing this. Like, I can't. I will go crazy. And it was for that reason, because and there was more to it. I was thinking like, oh, I haven't told my grandmother, like she's going to find out, and she's very Catholic. I hope that she's okay with it. And my other grandmother, she's like, how is she going to react? And how's this? And all of these things are going in my head, but I'm like, you know what? I'll deal with that later on. For right now, I just have to choose survival and mental happiness. And the next day, we went to a group dinner with the roommates, and it was at Buca di Beppo, that Italian place. And we're all doing the numbers game, because that's what a bunch of early 20-somethings do when you're getting to know each other. So we're doing the numbers game, and it's like, how many people have you hooked up with? And they're going around the table, and I'm last. And it's going around the table, and they finally get to me. And I forget what I like the numbers or something, but I was like, it was something like 20 women. And they were like, cool. And then they were about to go, and under the table, I'm white knuckling it under the table. And I'm like, what am I gonna, I'm doing it. And then I was like, and 3 guys. And they're like, what? And I was like, and 3 guys. And everybody just immediately, they just look at me and they're like, wait, are you saying what I think you're saying? And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm doing it. And the response was phenomenal. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and also that I could go through the rest of the season being my authentic self, and using, up until that point, it was like 50% of my brain was present, 50% of my brain was watching the other 50% being like, don't say this, don't do this, don't do this. And I wasn't sharing my full self with people. And immediately, as soon as those words came out of my mouth, it was like the other half of my brain, like started up, and I was present, I was aware, I was more aware of what others were saying to me, and more empathetic and able to connect with them more deeply, just immediately, because I had freed up that half of my brain that was so scared, and like you said, living out of fear.
Yeah, your amygdala is where the fear response is kicking in. So in your brain, it's like, how am I supposed to engage in connection seeking in this huge, like widely huge public platform, and then hide this part of myself? And then what if I'm rejected? And actually, interestingly enough, it's the same part of our brain that feels whenever we break a bone, is the same part of our brain that actually experiences what it is to feel rejection and to be ostracized. So just so that you have awareness of like that level of pain, it's valid. Like it is so beyond valid, because the part of your brain is saying, holy shit, this is painful. But then when you kind of like overcome it and do, frankly, you expose yourself to the feared, stimulus or stimuli, and then you realize the outcome expectations are totally different than anything.
Like, hey, this isn't so bad. They like me. They really like me.
It's like, no wonder. It's just like, you can like, let your shoulders down and just like, I can be me. How amazing.
I think, what is that quote? I think was it Roosevelt or Eisenhower? I don't know. It's a quote that says something like, I've experienced a great number of fears in my life, most of which have never come to pass. And it's like so much of what we sort of, the anxiety that we hold ourselves, underneath and sort of we worry, 99% of that never happens.
And that in essence is what worry and anxiety is all about. I mean, and just even hearing you talk about this for whatever reason, and I just keep thinking about Colton Underwood's story. Because as I hear you talk about even faith and the value of faith, I do not know this, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot or expose anything. I'm just saying, if you guys have not connected, I feel like you'd be such an amazing person to have in his life in terms of talking, because it's just, I have listened to his story and watched kind of his process of coming out. And, I just feel a lot of this comes back to representation. Even whenever I remember hearing his own story of just like, not knowing if you're going to be accepted within the church, not having Glee or Modern Family present what your new normal could look like. But then to see people like yourselves who are so publicly out there and in this space of kind of sharing your story, it puts you, I mean, it puts you in such a spot where I get it. Things can go one of two different directions, but thank God it has kind of created new conversation and created a little bit more equity and equality in certain areas that might not have existed before.
Exactly. I'm so proud of what we were able to accomplish on the show. And after, so I took a semester of my senior year of college off to do the show. And then as the show was airing, I was finishing college. So I went back to Colorado, and I went from being like average Joe, I had my friends, I had whatever, to like everybody knowing me and knowing my name and wanting to be buddies with me and partnering on these business projects and everything else. And overnight, and another thing too, at that point, because now I'm like private on social media and everything, just to protect my family and whatnot. But at that point I wasn't. And so I received thousands overnight. The first episode airs where I come out. And then there was another episode in the middle of the season where my mother visits me, and I sort of confront her with some of the being angry that she told me to hide myself on the show. And then we have this really nice moment where she understands and she apologizes, and we hug and we cry. And especially when that episode aired, overnight, I received thousands and thousands of letters from people across the world that said, Mike, thank you for sharing your story, because we haven't seen representation like that, or enough representation like that on television. Because this was before Modern Family, this was before Glee. And at that point, I know for me, I would turn on the news once in a while and I would see a Pride Parade celebration, and it would be, a man that's 100 years old and in a Speedo walking with a feather boa, and listen, power to him. Like, why not?
I love him.
Do your thing. But I didn't identify with that. And so I was like, oh man, I don't know what I am. Like, I know that I'm not, I don't see myself in this person. So where do I belong? Where do I fit in? And I think just by me being a person of faith who liked sports and, whatever other attributes that I had on the show, people seemed to connect with. And they were like, Mike, thank you for doing that, because now you've helped me at least start the conversation within myself to be like, okay, I could be that. I might not be straight, whatever that is. I don't know, but I might not be straight. And it was really powerful. And, on my deathbed, when I'm like recounting the things that I'm proud of in my life, I know that will be one of those things.
But it's a huge movement. It's a huge idea that other people can see the spectrum of life. And like, it's not the stereotypical, not all gay men look the same, not all gay women look like, not all people look the same, not all straight people present the same. And it's okay to be different. But I think we have this common theme, Lindsey, that we're either too much or we're not enough. Like, you have to be in the box exactly. Otherwise, like, what are you? And then there's the whole crisis.
I have a whole soapbox rant that I will not get on per se.
Not today.
not today, maybe tomorrow. But I do believe that in terms of like sexual orientation or gender identity, like all this stuff exists on a spectrum. Why do we have to have a box or a circle or whatever to fit in? Like, why do we have to choose?
Yeah. Well, and it's, I mean, this because of your studies in psychology. It's like the Kinsey scale. Like, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, this has been the most comprehensive study on human sexuality to date. And what he found was that there's it's 1 to 6 or something, and 10% of people, if like a 1 is straight and a 6 is gay, and this was, men and women were studied, it was like 10% of people are a 1, 10% of people are a 6. The other 80% are somewhere in the middle. Like, sexuality is a spectrum.
Right.
And I think your environment and who you meet and where you are in life and what you see in the media, like, that might move your needle one way or another. But I think just the idea of knowing that you don't have to be completely one or completely the other, I think is very freeing. And a lot of people are discovering that more and more. I read this New York Times article a couple months ago that I think it's something like under the age of 26, 1 in 6 people identify as not straight. Like what, whatever that means to them, but like 1 in 6 is not straight. And I feel like publicly identifying, and I think that the younger generation, they understand that Kinsey scale. They understand that it's sexuality might change, and it might be, might be one thing at one point in your life and another thing at another point, like, but it is up to you to decide, and it's nobody else's right to judge you for that.
That's right. It's all a fluid experience. Life is a fluid experience. It's like, who are we to judge anybody? That's not our job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, what the hell, man? There's so much more. And that's what I mean. Like, there's just so much more. I know I say that so loosely, but it's because, we live in a society where, unfortunately, ignorance is bliss, and hate still exists. And that's one of those things that I think the more open and honest that we can get about some of this stuff, the more that we name it and say it out loud, the more that we're able to kind of tame it and kind of take our power back. So I'm all about it. And I think that even your splash into Hollywood has been a great example of you reclaiming your sense of self and what an actor can be and look like, and the fact that you don't have to fit in some kind of a mold or hide your identity to get parts. I mean, can you kind of speak a little bit about like the cultural norms that go on in Hollywood that maybe your average person isn't aware of? And I get it, things have shifted a little bit, but
I think things have shifted from when I came to Hollywood 12 years ago. Because as soon as Real World was done airing, I packed up my car, and a manager actually in Los Angeles reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, Mike, you have a great look. I saw you on Real World. Do you have acting experience?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been doing theater since I was little, but I haven't really thought about taking it seriously." And he said, "Give it 6 months, move out here, give it 6 months and see what happens." And that was another thing where you said choosing faith over fear. I packed up my car. I drove to Los Angeles. I knew 2 people, barely. So there was no type of nepotism that I could cling on to try to get my foot in the door in terms of entertainment jobs. And I worked my way up. And over the last 12 years, I started on small projects and then bigger projects, and then got my first guest star on a show called Crash and Bernstein on Disney. And then I had Hawaii Five-0. And then, and like there were these milestones that I hit and doing bigger and bigger projects. And, and then now finishing a year on Days of Our Lives and finishing a recurring on This Is Us, which is like my parents' favorite show. So they were thrilled.
That's gotta be so fun for them. Like, honestly.
They love it. They're so proud. They're so proud. And I love talking to them. There are certain things I can't tell them because they're not the best at keeping secrets, and some things I'm like, but they're so proud, and they're so just great humans, and I love them. So it's fun to share this with them. But yeah, I'm not going to say that it was easy, and I'm not going to pretend that there weren't times, especially, and I think things have changed for the better in the last 12 years. I think.
Oh yeah.
Whenever it was like 9 years ago that I did a Disney movie called Cloud9, and it was a snowboarding movie. And I was dating someone at the time and felt pressure through a publicist that I had been working with at the time and a few others to sort of hide my relationship and hide my sexuality at that point because I was working for Disney. And so it was a really shitty feeling going from someone that had made such strides in accepting myself and being proud and going on Real World and lobbying members of Congress. And the final episode of the show, I'm watching President Obama speak about LGBT equality with my dad, sitting there and having come full circle with him and all that stuff, and then moving to Hollywood and seeing the Hollywood community be so accepting compared to what I knew in Colorado, and really feeling a sense of self-esteem with who I am. And then a few years later to be sort of told to hide that and go back in the closet when I started working for Disney, it really messed me up for a little bit. And I really.
But you honestly want to say, like, are you even paying attention? Like, I got here by being my real authentic self. Like, I've done so much work. How freaking dare you say that to me? And like,
yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, that's, I think that now.
Well, yeah. No,
at that time, and
trust me.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the time, I was just like so happy because that movie had been one of the bigger things that I had done at that point. And it was supposed to be a 3-picture deal. So in my mind, I'm like, whatever Disney wants me to do. And it wasn't even Disney telling me this. It was what these people around me thought Disney wanted. Disney now has some very progressive stories. They're making huge strides. And I'm so incredibly proud of them as a company compared to who they were 10 years ago. And so 10 years ago, though, it wasn't coming from Disney. It was coming from these people, these publicists, these agents and managers and things that were like, tone it down, like be this way so that we can get you jobs, because Hollywood's not ready to accept your type yet. Too much. And I did. I sort of, on social media and in professional conversations, not with any of my friends or anything, it wasn't that dramatic, but with professional conversations, I sort of started to dull certain aspects of my personality, and it really hurt. And I had to see, after I decided that I wasn't going to do that, it took months and months, if not a year of counseling to sort of get me back to center again.
I mean, that's a tremendous setback, is to your point, to come so far along and to have made so much progress and done all these amazing things with your life, following your life purpose. And then all of a sudden to have these people who are supposed to be the know-it-alls in the industry, right, and keep you current, to sit there and tell you, oh, and by the way, let's just kind of like tuck that thing behind over here, you know?
It was tough.
Yeah, I cannot imagine, and I'm very sorry that happened. And in the same breath, I hope that this was something that was able to move you through the experience, getting even more confident and closer to your best self, your highest good, and what you're destined to be here to do, which is to share your message of authenticity.
Thank you.
Yeah, and even like bringing this even full circle to where you are today. I can't help but to sit here and think about the Emmy that you won. I mean, can we just talk about
holy crap?
Right, but let's just like dig in a little bit. Like, tell us what the storyline was. Tell us what you won this Emmy for, and why it's so meaningful.
Well, winning an Emmy, I won an Emmy last year on a show called The Bay, and it was for Best Supporting Actor, and it's just incredible to win an Emmy and to have a little gold statue and to be recognized for years and years of work that you're putting into building your craft and becoming a better actor and digging deep and discovering who you are as a person to then know what you can offer to characters. And there's really a lot of work that people sometimes don't understand that goes on behind the scenes in an actor's career. Definitely wasn't handed to me. And so it was nice to have that recognized. And this is a prime example of the power of authenticity and the power of the universe, like sort of rewarding you when you are your authentic self, because the storyline that I won my Emmy for was an LGBT storyline on this show, where in season 5, I came in as this best friend of one of the main characters. And then in the end of the season, you sort of, it's hinted towards like, is there more than friendship here? Like, is there going to be a relationship? And then in season 6, you see them in a relationship. And then by the end of the season, my character proposes. And then by the end of the season, the last episode, they're getting married. And for that last episode, for the marriage scene, I am wearing my wedding ring. I am wearing my same suit that I got married in. And I'm giving vows that I took little pieces of my own vows to then tell to this person. And then I watch it back and I'm like, fuck, that was a really powerful performance, because so much of it was from here and not from, my brain. It was from my heart. And so to have that be what I won an Emmy for it was a remarkable feeling.
Grace be to God. And not to mention, can you share with our audience who was not there to hear your acceptance speech? What did you do during your acceptance speech, by the way, when you got that Emmy?
I I thanked my parents. I thanked my agents and managers and reps that believe in me and push me for the person I am now. I thanked my grandmother, who had a huge part in um, in encouraging me to be my creative self.
And then
And then I thanked my husband, and I thanked my husband for that. And he's a very private person, and he hates sort of being out there. But the fact that I could publicly thank him and acknowledge him, and then also I think I wrapped up my speech with like, if any young person is watching either the show, The Bay, or listening to this speech right now, if that storyline helps them realize that they are worthy of the exact same love that everybody else sort of demands in this country, then I think if one mind is changed with that storyline, then that makes it all worth it. And to be able to say those words and sort of connect with that young person watching at home was a really cool feeling.
Yes.
There's I'm sorry. There's just a lot to unpack there. And in my heart and my mind, I'm like, you are a badass. Like, not only did you come out on national television, check, but like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to go accept this amazing Emmy, and I'm going to tell all of you truckers that I am married and you don't know that yet. Like, what?
Yeah.
Zinger. Yeah. And then to be like the last, like for that episode, for you to have your ring and to be wearing,
so
I mean,
good.
that is so beautiful. I mean, it's just, it's so beautiful. And honestly, it's like this is like your Disney movie is real life.
Like a Disney love story, only so much better.
It's so sweet.
Thank you.
Absolutely love it. I think that is so incredibly beautiful. And it just, I'm so amazingly proud of you, and just truly to think how we change in our lives, right? Just like how life presents us with like these little moments, and you can choose to go with it. You can go with the flow, or you can choose free will and resist it or do whatever. But it's like the fact that you have just gone with the flow of fine, all right, I think I'll go try out. I'll do the thing. It gets me a free lunch, or like, oh, okay, I think, I'm white knuckling it under the tables is really uncomfortable. I think I'll come out. Like, oh, okay, I think I'll do the lobbying thing. I know I need to get a job. Why not make a difference? I
mean, and then all of this, like, so you've obviously overcome so much adversity, and you've dealt with so many naysayers and haters. Like, I can only imagine all of the crap that came into your inbox, to your DMs, whatever. But you also got involved with an organization that I've been spending a little bit of time researching after I kind of saw it attached to your stuff, and Lindsey shared it with me. Can you tell us a little bit about Buddha bullying? Can you about what that means to you, and like how you got involved?
Yeah.
You've been with them for a long time, like been involved with them for a long time.
Yeah, I was introduced to them in 2012 by a friend, actress Cassie Skirbo. So she was on Make It or Break It, I think, at that point. She's the vice president of Buddha Bullying. And then I've met the president, Dimitri, and we've become friends. And just over the years, I've been involved with them as an ambassador. And what they do is we have a bunch of ambassadors that are athletes and entertainers and actors and singers and whatever. And we'll go and we'll speak at school assemblies or events or sports teams or whatever. We have Olympic athletes that'll go speak to sports teams about toxic masculinity. Like, it's a really comprehensive, cool program.
That's amazing.
And then we also will create positive content to sort of release into the world, because cyberbullying is a huge problem, and there's so much negativity that is put out there that we want to combat that a little bit. So we create positive content, inspirational content, reminders that you can do it, that it gets better, and everything else. And that's something also that I enjoy doing, because what we were talking about earlier, like the ripple effects of what we do, sometimes we don't know, but to create positive content, at least there's the hopes that it'll reach the right person that needs that at that moment, kind of thing.
That's exactly right. And it's so powerful, because that's just it. We never know what kind of a difference we're making. And you just hope that the message is received at the right time with the right person and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the epitome of kind of how that ripple effect is far and wide reaching, in all areas. I really would love to just give you an opportunity to just kind of do your shout out of all the things that either you're working on or you want to bring awareness to, any kind of big takeaway or that you'd like to share with our audience. Let's dive into that. What would you like our audience to know, follow, be a part of?
Well, my big takeaway, I mean, my one message that I would want to tell the audience is, I get asked this a lot. It's like, what would you tell your younger self? And there are some times where I go and I also teach acting, and I love inspiring young actors. And if there's any young person listening right now, it's like, if I hadn't, half of me wants to go back and tell young Mike, hey, it's fine. Like, you're going to get through this, and sort of save him from all of that hardship and pain. But now older Mike has a testimony, and now older Mike has resilience, and older Mike has tools that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't gone through what I'm going through. So if anybody's listening, young or old, actually, that's facing any sort of hardships right now, it's like, what is it? The only difference between a diamond and coal is a little bit of pressure. And it's like, you can take whatever's happening to you right now and use it to strengthen yourself and harden yourself in a good way, and become, evolve as a person, and then, and choose who you sort of put out into the world and how you interact with others, and learn from it instead of just focusing on some of the negative stuff. So every time, I do an interview, or I always encourage people to just to know that it gets better, whatever they're facing, and to know that, you can either focus on the negative, or you can use that as fuel to drive you as a person moving forward. And that's what I've chosen to do, I think. And it's really helped me in life. In terms of projects, there's a project that I have a production company, like you said, Lucky Mann Productions. And there's a project that is on SHUDDER and AMC Plus right now called Slapface. And it's a horror film, but it has a very strong anti-bullying message. Yes. So it's a story about a young boy that befriends a monster that lives in the woods. And this monster, by the end of the movie, we don't know if the monster was ever really there, or if she is a manifestation of the grief and the hurt and the bullying that this young boy has experienced. And I, through my production company, I love telling stories that way. I love finding stories that are commercially entertaining and people want to watch them and experience them, but also that have a message. Because I feel like, if Real World and this entire conversation is any example, it's like the power of film and television to change hearts and minds and affect people is incredible, especially now in the age of social media, where everybody's on their phone all the time, and you never have somebody's undivided attention like you do in a movie theater for 2 hours, or when they invite you into their living rooms and they're watching you on TV. You don't have that type of access and visibility. And so, that's why I don't take that lightly. And I really want to continue to produce stuff that, has positive messages.
Yes.
All of my projects are on my website, luckymann.pro. It's Lucky Mann, like Manning.pro, or my website's mikemanning.info.
Awesome. We're definitely going to put all that stuff in the show notes without a doubt. And just the fact that you've got, taking it a step further, the fact that you just made a production company, right? Of just saying, hey, instead of sitting around and waiting for these parts to become available or for the representation to occur, I'm just going to create my own production company and do it myself.
Yeah. Well, I just want control of what I'm putting out into the world. And sometimes people invite me to be a part of their stories. And if they don't, then I'm like, well, screw it. I'm going to create my own story. Right. And maybe I'll invite you, or maybe I won't. I don't know.
Attaboy.
I love that.
I love it.
Yes. Way to take control. And it's what I love about this. And Lindsey, there's a common theme in the people that you surround yourself with. They are world changers. Like, they are people who you can tell them no, and like, that's all fine, well and good, but that no means nothing. And they're just gonna like skip over you and do the damn thing anyway. So
that's
Mike,
right.
I would say keep it up, because it's amazing. And that representation is so needed. And the discussion around bullying is so needed.
It is. It absolutely is. And yes, I'm a big believer that we should surround ourselves by love, light, high vibrating people, and change makers, people that you want. If you want to aspire to reach that level yourself, you need to surround yourself with people who are full of the same kind of energy to keep that going, to keep that movement, that ripple effect going. So, I'm immensely proud of you, and I'm so glad that we could connect and talk about all of this stuff, because your story, it's like you still have a whole lifetime ahead of you. And so the fact that you're here now with already so much, I just can't wait to see how you continue to use your voice and to move the needle forward that much more, you know?
Thank you, Lindsey.
Yes.
And you too, Amber. You guys, this has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining What the Fox podcast. For our listeners, you're going to find out all the good details in the show notes. And we invite you to tune in to, if you want to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, we're there. And thank you all. Until next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. Bye.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.